Welcome to the Blue Collar Barbarians podcast, brought to you by the Blue Collar Barbarians Network. And today, we got another guest for you. A very, very special guest today. A good one for you, if you will. Kyle Coutts. Kyle Coutts is a superintendent. He's went to the dark side on us.
Yeah, went to the dark side, took the leap.
You took the leap. But what you did is you've made the jump. And one thing I really appreciate about you taking your time to come and talk to our audience today is that you made the jump into leadership. And one thing I really want is for our audience to have value come from somebody that's done it.
Yeah.
And somebody that's in a position of leadership. Because one thing that we'll get into as this show goes is we'll discuss like what, from a leadership standpoint, that you think that people could do to stand out more and to bring more value to people like you so that they could have that opportunity. But before we get started, ladies and gentlemen, we have been working very hard to bring you giveaway items. We got this little ridge belt right here. We got holster gator clips. We got Gerber knives. We got Ridge water bottles and Yeti coffee cups. We have a ton of different gear to give away to you, the listener. All you got to do is follow the show. Wherever you're following the show, follow along, and there will be special instructions. We are going to streamline this and put it into a page on the podcast website where all you got to do is fill out the little information, little capture information, and boom, you're entered. We want to give you guys this gear. We have worked hard to come to with companies like True Work and Dry Duck and Gerber, like all these different companies we've put together literally with nothing to ask, just to give, to bring you value, to help you elevate yourself within your career, to encourage you to listen and consume stuff to elevate themselves within their career. So we got a lot more big things coming, maybe a generator, maybe for somebody, but
like that.
Yeah, there we go. So please like, subscribe, follow, do all the little things, all the little ding, 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 ding. Follow that, turn your subscriptions on, and just do us a solid and share this with somebody that you know is going through it. Share this with somebody that you know is trying to get more out of life. Because one thing that we have done is bring you guests like Kyle, our special guest today, that we want literally to do nothing but to serve you, to help you get better, right? And that's where we're at with this show. So diving in, I'll digress from the giveaway. Watch for them. Lots of big stuff to come. But diving in, Mr. Kyle Coutts, thank you so much for being here today, man.
Thanks for having me, man. This is cool. I'm not used to this kind of thing, so it's pretty cool. Thanks for having me.
Hey, no, we appreciate it, and we appreciate your time. What I want to dive right in, dude, because you're a gold mine of doing it, right? Like we briefly discussed this, but you have made it from crew to foreman to general foreman to now superintendent. You've climbed the ranks. You've been in the mud, literally,
Definitely.
with the people, and you have a ton of value, and you've been through some hard stuff, which we'll cover. Tell us about your background, man. Dive in.
Oh, man, where do I start? High school was a big party for me. I didn't really apply myself like I should. It's kind of a goofball, class clown, if you will.
Yeah.
After high school, I didn't have any plan, no plan whatsoever. I thought myself like maybe I should go to college. So I did half a semester, made it half a semester in community college, and realized it just was not for me. So that's when I decided to try construction. My stepdad runs a steel fab shop out in Sandy where I live, and so I started there, and I just wasn't working out, didn't like it too much. So I started at a cabinet shop, started doing some fine woodworking, and really, really enjoyed that. I still enjoy that woodworking.
Really?
I do. I don't get the chance to do it too much. Got a lot going on, but it's definitely one of my passions. After that, I decided to go move on to bigger construction, started building decks and fences and working on remodeling houses and new additions, and really kind of started to fall in love with building, I wasn't making any money, I was like 20 years old, and driving downtown Portland, you see all these big cranes and big construction going on, and
buzzers, beepers, lights, road closed.
just like a little kid at a toy store looking at all the dump trucks and everything, and I just knew I wanted to do something big like that, and I just didn't know how to do it at all. And I was at my buddy's wedding party, and his dad, who I knew my whole life, he's like, what are you doing nowadays? And I told him, and he said, well, why don't you join the Carpenters Union? That's what I've been doing. And I'm like, Carpenters Union? What the hell is the Carpenters Union, And so anyway, that next Monday, I went in, and I put my name on the books at the union. Got a call a few months later saying, hey, we opened them up. Come on down for a pre-interview. And I'm thinking, cool, this is my chance, and I'm going to go build houses and stuff like that and make a little bit more money, get some benefits going. And the pre-hire class interview deal, the guy says, welcome to the wide world of concrete. I'm thinking to myself, damn, I wasn't planning on doing concrete, but I went for it anyway and jumped in head first, and within the first 3 months I wanted to quit.
Oh, man.
I did. I wanted to quit. I didn't like working outside, didn't like working in the weather. First-generation carpenter. My dad's a 40-year retired lineman, so it's in my blood.
Right.
But I didn't want to do it. Everybody was an asshole. Pretty much.
No, that's the truth.
But I started out on a tilt-up. And, a tilt-up.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Tilt-up's like what I've always said, and I've done a lot of them. It's like 3 months of back-breaking work, literally, for like 3 days of glory, right? And I didn't know what was coming. I didn't know what tilt day was. And anyway, they bring in the big crane, and we tilt these big, massive 100,000-pound panels and fly them and set them into place. And I was hooked, man. I was hooked from that point forward. I knew I wanted to stick with it, stick it out. And I just kind of started really putting my nose to the grindstone, and that's kind of where it all started.
So you were essentially doing finished carpentry. Carpentry. You don't know this. Our cameraman, he's a union finish carpenter.
Okay, cool.
He was till he started his own company.
Right on. Right on.
Yeah, a barbarian in his own right.
Yeah,
right?
no kidding.
So he understands that lingo more than I do. I'll never understand why you guys like sawdust in your fingernails and all this glittery stuff. But I'll digress. You guys do. There's an attention to detail and a touch there that comes with that, and I'm sure that kind of helped parlay you into now you're in the concrete world where it's just hammer, cut, ripping boards, pouring mud, dirty, like you said, being out in the elements. And the audience kind of knows this, but I do the crane thing too. I've done mobile. I absolutely hate tilt-ups. I didn't know you came from a tilt-up background. The suicide panels is a real thing. Yeah. And every time you yank one of them things up, you're just praying to God it don't come a piece every single time. Mm-hmm. Super high stress. But I could see where you're like 3 months of like, I want to quit. Mm-hmm. And then that day comes, and I don't know what they built, but let's just say one of the 16,000s on tracks or something giant, and you're like, what is that?
Yeah, pretty much. I didn't know anything about cranes, and it was cool. It was really cool.
So then from there, what did you do? So you got into tilt-ups, and then you moved on, obviously, into high-rises, I'm guessing?
I did. I went down to, first high-rise was Ladd Tower downtown on, I think it's like 6th and Jefferson or something like that, right by PSU. And I loved it. I got put on a corps. I was still an apprentice, obviously, and got put in the corps and climbing walls and clearing bar and stuffing ties and just boom, boom, boom. And after about 6 or 8 floors, I was loving it. But the company I was working for had some more tilt-ups to do and out in the Gresham area. And so I went out there and did 4 more tilt-ups with them before. And the company was out of Washington, and then they kind of dried up down here. And that's when I went to a different company and started doing another high-rise. And moved on from there and went on and worked on the old Oregon City Bridge refab. That was pretty cool, hanging over the water and having a barge crane and everything. And that was really cool. I enjoyed that.
Yeah. So what did you get when you're saying you got to climb walls and stuff? Talk about what that was like.
Scary at first, you know. You're climbing. I done some big walls, some 60-footers and everything. And back then, a lot of the time when you're doing big walls now, they really try to engineer out all the fall hazards and everything, and throw you in like scissor lifts or boom lifts and everything. But you know, today a lot of people still climb, but back then that's pretty much all you did. You were climbing, and you know, I even think at that time you climbed to where you were working and then you tied off. I think that's how it went. So,
wow.
So it was
you
kind
didn't
of
have the safety hook there.
well. I mean, I had my lanyard and everything, and my positioning hooks, but you know, you kind of climbed up 10 feet and then you'd hook off. Whereas now, you know, you get your feet above 6 feet, and then you hook off, and then you continue to climb with a double lanyard, right? And so you know, it was scary at first, and an apprentice climbing walls and having a journeyman yelling at you, telling you, hurry the hell up, you know, and you just, before you know it, the day's over. I mean, it doesn't matter what the weather's like. It doesn't matter snow, sleet, rain, high wind, whatever it is. You're climbing and you're working your butt off, and the days just cruise by, man. And it's walls is probably my favorite thing to do.
Oh,
yeah.
Walls are cool. It is a different beast. It takes a different.
I mean, how many people get to say they're, you know, 40 feet up on a wall, positioned off, and having a tower crane swing another panel in your face, and you're landing it, and you got your wall bags on that probably weigh, I don't know, upwards of 60 pounds sometimes, and I don't know, you climb down at the end of the day or the end of your shift, and you feel that sense of pride, like, man, I did something today, you know. I really got something done, and it's it feels good. It does.
It does, especially if you could approach it from like, well, one, you're too busy to let like complaining and different shit like that affect you, because you're literally all day your hands are in something, spinning wall ties, charging bar through the wall, whatever it is, doing little ties, right? And I speak to this from the sitting in the seat watching it and performing that work, not necessarily doing it all myself. But when you have a good crew, you're right. It absolutely, next thing you know, it's 7 a.m. and you're tripping your first wall, and then next thing you know, it's 2:30 p.m. and certain guys are cutting loose, and other guys are talking about, now we got to stab columns or whatever the next iteration or phase of the job is. And so then obviously you got good at that, right? Like what was your progression like then? So at what point did you, like, let's talk about just what was apprenticeship like as a whole for you?
It was great. I learned a lot. You know, a couple of the old guys I was working for, they told me, you know, don't focus on one thing in your apprenticeship. You know, I like them talking to me. I know you love doing walls and stuff like that, but don't narrow your scope. Kind of broaden your skill set. Get out there and maybe, because I was general carpenter, so I could bounce back and forth. Whereas like EIS, they're kind of locked into steel stud and sheathing and stuff like that. But I wanted to be able to do a little bit of everything, and so I mainly was doing concrete, but whenever I got the chance to do something different, I jumped at it, you know. And the companies I was working for, they didn't offer a whole lot of different stuff, but anytime there was any type of like architectural wall or something where you really have to focus, and that kind of brought my passion back from the woodworking days, and really kind of doing, you know, a lot of the time with concrete, you're working with quarters of an inch, and you don't really care if something's out a quarter. But then you do an architectural wall, and it's got to be back down to a 16th or an eighth of an inch, where you really got to make sure it's right, you know. And so I really started to broaden my scope and tried to learn a little bit of everything. And then I journeyed out Sandy High School in 2010, I think it was.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I really wanted to run a crew. And I think a lot of apprentices feel like that, like, oh man, one day I want to run a crew, you know. And anyway, I got the opportunity shortly after that, and it wasn't really all it was cracked up to be at the time, you know. I you're still working just as hard. You're the difference is you're trying to lead, and I had so many different leaders, and when I finally got a crew, I didn't really know how to lead. I mean, I just knew how to do the work.
Right.
And so that's kind of when my mindset started to change into mentorship and trying to teach everything I know. A lot of the journeymen I worked with, they teach me one little thing and one way to do something, and instead of saying there's 1,000 ways to skin a cat, like you find your niche and the way you want to do things, and it's just like, so find your niche with the work itself, but then find your niche as a leader and figuring out how to lead a crew.
Yeah.
And, I kind of went down the path of being really communicative and personable with my crew, like knowing the makeup of my crew, like not just, this guy works for me, but, learning about his background and his family and what, not just asking him, how was your weekend, really trying to learn about my crew and develop that sense of brotherhood and or sisterhood, whatever you want to call it, all alike. And culture, yeah, exactly. And I felt like I found the right recipe to lead. And I wasn't a foreman the whole time since then. There was times where I was just back being a hand on a crew and everything if I'd switched to a different company. And
but you would lead nonetheless, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And there's an important thing about leadership, or well, not about just leadership, but in general, I think that there's a mastery level here for our audience. When you teach something, that's when you truly know something.
Yeah.
When you can learn how to teach it, the reputation, the reps and the repetitions it takes to teach and to think through thought and articulate, like, this is how I do this. Mm-hmm. What is, when you're doing it, almost a brain function at that point, right? Yeah. I'm just doing this. But to be able to figure out how to technically explain and teach and show, that's, to me, like, this is where you, and I think a lot of people miss this, but this is where you're getting the mastery level. There's so many people that are, and I'm sure you see this a lot, that are so job scared now that they're like, oh, I'm not going to show him that. I'm not going to show him how to be more efficient or how to be faster at that, or I'm not going to teach him my little trick I figured out with this because
hide the prints.
Yeah, like I don't want to do that. Like, figure it out yourself. That's how I had to do that. But you're missing an opportunity when you do that. When you teach, to teach somebody, you're missing an opportunity to develop yourself more. One, not only as a leader and in your communication set, but also to like really wrap your head around your knowledge base and to really reinforce in your mind. It does something for you, I would say, even subconsciously, that just tells you, like, I really actually know my shit, right? Like, legitimately, if I can explain to you how to do this, and then I can show you, and then I can watch you perform it, then I wrap around like, oh, I really do know this. Yeah. And it actually makes me more proficient and efficient. Yeah. Because I've now explained this X amount of times. And I think there's a huge breakdown. You're in a leadership position now, especially, but would you agree with what I'm going with this? Like, that's a missed opportunity for people?
Oh, I totally agree. I mean, as somebody just on a crew and you have a foreman, a lot of the time you just trust what the foreman says, like that's the foreman says it, that's what I got to do, blah, blah, blah. But if you take the time and you get down on, squat down and really show somebody how to do something, it helps your crew develop a sense of confidence in their leader, in their foreman or whoever's teaching them, that, man, this guy really, he knows what he's doing, and I trust him, and instead of having like a false confidence in somebody, just like, well, that guy's telling me how to do it. I guess this is how I do it.
Right.
Like show them and tell them why. Explain why you're doing it like this, and building a sense of trust and confidence for your crew to have that confidence in you. That's a big part of leadership. Definitely.
Yeah, for sure. And then, like, it's also really cool that you figured that out right out of the gate when you said, you know, like, I agree with you. A lot of apprentices come out and they're ready to run the job. And this is not a shot at apprentices. Like, hey, you're right. Congratulations. You went through the process. You've journeyed out. You've done your time. You do most of the way, know your shit.
Yeah.
If you could be honest with yourself, there's things that even in your position, you got to learn every day.
Oh, man.
There's things I've done. There's 1,000 ways to set a column cage. Even though there's only 3, there's 1,000 ways to do it, because in that moment, maybe that bar's bent just a little bit. So I got to lean into it a little bit more on my swing with the crane, or I got to, as I'm coming down, trolley out, to try to shift a little bit of overhead weight so it doesn't snap. Little tiny detail. Like, I have to learn how to redo something I may have done at a mastery level, even at 10,000 reps, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So to be able to teach that to somebody and to expedite that, and for you to figure that out, like, at the beginning of running work, is incredible. So for you guys that are listening, that are in an apprenticeship or just recently got out or want to get an opportunity to lead, maybe you've been in a stagnant position for a couple of years, like, take the opportunity to show those guys that need help with something everything you got. Show them. You don't need to maybe go out of your way to teach them or take their hand and walk them to the water and cross the bridge and frolic. But you do need care about them. Care about showing them, like, hey, man, I just want you to know that this will make your life easier. Yeah. And if you could do that, like you said, that building trust piece, that is so huge. We just actually talked about that on the last episode with a guy. Cool. From a leadership standpoint, it was building trust. But let's talk about so you were a foreman, and let's talk about, like, going from foreman to general foreman really quick. What's that like? So you've been running crews, you've built rapport amongst your men, right? Yeah. And now you're getting a culture going where your guys aren't afraid, one, to ask questions when they need help. So you don't have to here's a bonus for you guys. If you can just ask questions and not have to re-perform the work, it saves money, which makes you more valuable because you're not going back and doing stuff. So just take the second, ask the question, learn. That's a pro level tip for anybody that wants to stand out. Like, do it right the first time so that we're not spending budget on fixes, essentially, especially little ones. But what was that like? You built a culture now, you got a team, now you're going from just being a foreman to where they're asking you to be a GF. Yeah,
that was odd. That I didn't, when it happened, I didn't, well, one thing you got to know is leadership. I think everybody, the job that they want to do, before they get that title, you're already doing that job.
That's it.
And you're doing it for a while. And you're thinking to yourself, like, man, I'm doing a lot more than I should be on paper, but damn it, I'm good at it, and I can keep going. And when the opportunity comes, then take that next step. I was working at we shifted. We were doing a lot of the company I'm with. We were doing a lot of big concrete, right? And 2019, I think it was. We finished up a high rise, and we went to it was summer, and they pulled myself and another foreman in, labor foreman, and said, hey, listen, we picked up this elementary school renovation, and we got to do this school full renovation, and we have to have it done in 10 weeks. And and we're like, okay, how are we supposed to do that? And by the way, on top of that, there's not very much concrete on this. It's all wood framing, it's sheathing, it's a lot of miscellaneous metals work and everything. And so you're taking a bunch of concrete hands and you're throwing them in a school for a summer. And we ended up having, I think 22 or 25 craft members. And we had our labor foreman, and we had me. We split it up into 4 different carpenter crews. And but we didn't get another foreman, so we had 4 different crews doing 4 different kinds of work. And the superintendent on the job was kind of new to the company, and didn't push to have another foreman come out. So I ended up running about, like I said, 15, 20 guys on 3 or 4 different crews, and they eventually got another foreman out there, but I was doing GF work, right. And then COVID hit, things kind of slowed down, and then I mean, I kept working. I got stuck in a healthcare job, and it was not my cup of tea. Pretty slow pace and everything, and then we also had a big job at Nike going on, but concrete was all done and everything, and now it was up to my company's self-perform team to do all the extra stuff, all the change orders, all the stuff that Nike came in and wanted to add and stuff like that, you know, and so then again I was running multiple different crews, and that's kind of how I fell into the GF spot, you know, and did some small tenant improvement jobs, not as a superintendent, just as I was doing superintendent work, coming back to that again, but I wasn't a superintendent, and I didn't really want to be. Like, I didn't at that point, I didn't want to take that step. I was capable of it.
Sure.
I knew I was, and I wasn't ready to make that leap and stop running crew. Like, that was like one of my favorite things to do, is run a crew, teach the guys up. Nothing better than getting a fresh green apprentice that doesn't know anything and molding them and teaching them and making them like a stud carpenter, you know. It's like my favorite thing in the world to do. And taking that leap to superintendent, I don't get to do that so much anymore. I'm still a leader, but as far as like the minute by minute teaching a guy down in the mud, it's not a thing anymore for me. And so, but now I'm kind of overseeing the project and making sure that's successful. But that's kind of the steps I took, and then just recently, the last 6 months, I decided to take the leap and go with salary and get the truck and run a project instead of running crew. So leadership hasn't gone away. It's still a big part of the work, but it's a different kind of leadership now.
No, it is. And like, first of all, congratulations. That's a big deal.
Yeah, thank you.
Earned.
Yeah.
That's what comes to mind when I hear your story. That was earned. That wasn't, and you didn't even want it at first until finally, but you did what was best for your family and for you. And that did never apologize for that to any of those guys. Quite frankly, how many of those guys that doubted you are where you are now? Yeah. How many of those guys with that piss poor attitude that talk trash about that kind of leadership are still working?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my body's breaking down too. Like, I mean, doing concrete for almost 20 years, 15 years, it wears on you big time. Yeah. And there's still guys out there that are 60 years old that are still wearing wall bags and still doing it. And I feel like I'd be capable of doing that, but I thought I'd be better suited, using the knowledge I built to run projects instead of continue to climb the walls. I feel like I owed it to my teachers and my mentors as much as I owed it to myself to give it a shot, Well,
it's not just that, man. Like, let's call a spade too. Like, your capacity to serve people is greater now. Yeah. You can actually now, all the things that you didn't have control of as a foreman or a GF, you do now. Yeah. Like, you can genuinely care about how somebody is laid off or who's brought on or what leader you're assigning to run said work, right? What foreman, who gets that move up. You get to constantly now evaluate and like legitimately help people progress in their career beyond what you could have just teaching the work, right? Which is not teaching the work, it is rewarding. There is something. Now, I'm not a carpenter. I won't pretend to be, nothing like that. But in the crane world, like, there is something real cool about, like, showing a guy and teaching him, like, some of your tricks, to, like, watching this guy now where he's proficient and he's fast and and you've worked underneath the hook. There's a huge difference between a guy with experience and a green tower hand, right? Like, and so to be able to teach a guy to be able to translate like his thoughts into his control inputs into like where now I'm watching I'm getting phone calls from carpenter, foremen, and different people like, hey, dude, this guy is banging out columns, he's banging walls, like da-da-da. It's like, I hear those stories now, and it brings me pride to think like there's, 35 minutes on a phone with the guy explaining to him how I do this, how to use emotion in your favor. So like, dude, you made the jump what effectively can really serve people in a different capacity. Some people call it the dark side. But what you did is you set your family up, you put yourself in a position, you've thought about your well-being, like physically speaking, like that is a smart move. And then also now, like you want to talk about like the full circle, like that real impact of getting to help people, like which we're going to do in just a second here through questions and some other things, but like get to where they can actually move up the ladder.
Yeah.
You have to move in a leadership position up if you want your guys to be able to come up.
Yeah.
There's only so many of those slots.
Yeah.
And they're only for the hungry. So it's either you get it knowing what you know and knowing that you truly care.
Yeah.
Or it goes to somebody else that might care less, might not know as much, but somebody is going to get it.
Yeah.
So why not be you, right?
Right. You know, and mentorship and leadership, it's not always
linear.
It's not always downward, you know. It's also sideways and up, you know. You can mentor and lead everybody around you, you know, and it's just one of those things that, you know, it comes back to everybody's always learning.
Yeah.
You can't ever stop learning, you know.
No, when you do, dude. I have this thing I say, if it don't grow, it goes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
the top, this is another thing I say, and this is like a mantra or something. This is just something I think as I'm working, as I'm progressing, as I'm chasing these wild, ambiguous dreams in my mind, right? And I'm running them out and manifesting. And I think about like the top is where you stop.
Yeah.
Like legitimately. Where you go to die is wherever you stop climbing.
Yeah.
And that could be a salty old hand, which we know.
Right.
Or it could be a general superintendent. It could be a CEO. It could be, where is the top? What is the top?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, because the system, it's not going to help you go.
Yeah.
You got to want it.
Yeah.
Right. And there's a thing to that. And I want to back up because you've been through something unique. And I know this is a little bit tough, but we talked about it a little bit beforehand that we thought there's value is, listen, like a big part of this show for me is I want, like, why we started this show, why this team started this show is I want to see people win.
Mm-hmm.
And everywhere I look right now, dude, our brothers and our sisters, they're hurting.
Yeah, they are.
In 2019, there's money falling off the ceiling.
Yeah.
You could shake a column and money would fall off the top of it. Like you literally, I could quit tomorrow and go here. I could call out by name for this guy. This superintendent called me up. Hey, you want to come do this building for me? Let's come. And now things that the current environment has changed.
Yeah, big time.
And it's not all smiles. It's not all like, I just need a warm body. It's everybody is hurting.
Yeah.
Not just financially, emotionally, stress. There's things going on. And you went through something pretty impactful. And I just want to speak to the guys that are in leadership roles, especially, and then to the guys that are trying to take those steps to become leaders or lead through their actions. Like you said, before you even get the title, you were working with an apprentice and you're, like you discussed earlier, your unit, and I worked with you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I've been in the sky above you, and
Yeah.
I've seen how you guys work, and it was fun.
Yeah.
We had a lot of fun. We did a lot of shit, but it was laughs. It was fun. It was there's a moment to chew somebody's ass, but then there's a moment to like, we're back at it.
Yeah.
And we're bouncing column forms and stripping walls. That's what we were doing, ironically.
Right.
But, you had, knowing like how much you care about your guys, as you stated, you had something where as a leader, you had a guy commit suicide.
I did, yeah.
And one, I want this to be very loud to our audience. You are not alone. If you guys are hurting or you guys are going through it, take a look around you. Like, there's a lot of us. All of us are hurting. All of us have our own struggles. It's not always picture perfect. Like, you are not alone. I cannot stress that. You are not alone. People care. Reach out for help. Two, what I want to cover with you, and we don't have to go super in depth with this or nothing like that, and no names, obviously, but I want to talk about, because that is something that, how do you pull your team out of hard?
Yeah, that was tough, man.
Yeah.
That
I can only imagine, especially when you really care from a leadership standpoint, right? So like you said, you now know your guys. This individual was a bubbly, very happy person. So one of our mutual friends, Brando, a previous guest, he actually knew him as well. And he said he was like one of the coolest cats, and it came out of nowhere, right? Like where somebody's struggle just was too much.
It did come out of nowhere, man. In hindsight though, but I think to myself, did it? You know? That was the other thing. He was, and I'm just gonna be honest. I might get a little choked up. He, and for anybody who knew him, he was a big personality. Everybody loved him, and he was pretty known in the Portland community, in the Portland sober community, as everybody called him Sober Snoop. Yeah. He had like 5 years clean and was below the bottom and got clean and started a career in the carpenters union and everything. And he was doing great. He had a wife and he had a kid, and they had him in healthcare for most of his apprenticeship, and he kind of got pigeonholed into healthcare. And in healthcare, you're not learning, you're not going back to it, you're not getting to broaden your skill set very much,
right?
You know, and I was running a healthcare job, ironically enough, at the hospital my wife works at, and so we were just doing it was like some sort of cath lab renovation or something, and he was working for me, and he had actually just journeyed out, and we discussed it, and I was slated to go run crews on another concrete project out in Hillsborough, and I wanted to bring Sean with me, and he was really hesitant. He's like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I don't know. I'm not going to be able to perform as a journeyman at a journeyman level like I'm supposed to be. And I said, listen, man, it's all right. Like, we're gonna get through it. I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna teach you. I said, the best thing you got going for you is you want to learn it, you know?
Yeah, that's
and
true.
We had that conversation multiple times. And then it was a couple weeks out before we were supposed to go, and at the end of shift, we had a long, it was like 45-minute conversation, and it was about him feeling like he wasn't going to perform, right? And I said, don't worry. Anyway, conversation ended. We bro hugged it out, and I said, I got you, man. Don't worry about this. And so we left for the day, and then he texted me, and he said, hey, we're starting at 5 tomorrow, right? And I said, yep, get some rest and everything. And he's like, yeah, cool, man. See you then. And a couple hours later, his brother was also working for us, and it was probably 6:30 at night. And his brother texted me, and he said, my brother took his own life tonight. And I lost it.
Yeah,
I really did. And I had to make the calls to my leadership and kind of let the cat out of the bag, if you will. And it's like our operating group here in Portland is really tight knit, and when the news hit, it was just, God, it was so tough. Everybody on every job site in Portland for our company, everything came to a stop, and just disbelief, right? Like, what happened, you know? And a lot of us are still asking those questions, like, what happened, you know? And you can look back on it, and in hindsight, and I don't know if this is me making up scenarios in my head or whatever, but that bubbly personality and that really outgoing person, looking back on it, he wasn't there anymore before he committed suicide. And I didn't notice that until after it happened. He wasn't coming into the office and chopping it up and having a conversation like he used to. And come to find out, he was really close with his wife, and he used to every day on break or lunch, he'd FaceTime his wife and his daughter and everything. And found out after the fact that he had stopped doing that. He wasn't calling his wife at work anymore. And so never know what happened and why he got to where he got. But I've made a lot of bad decisions in my life,
Sure.
and made a whole bunch of mistakes, and I pulled myself out of it after several tries, and I got through all the stuff that I messed up, and the reason I say that is because I came back from all those mistakes, and some of those mistakes I still pay for.
Sure.
But that's okay. I mean, because I've moved on and I'm a different person now. And he obviously, let me say also, I felt the way that he was feeling in the past. Like at least I feel like I did. I feel like I had a couple times in the past where I felt like I just can't do it anymore.
Right.
This is just too much. Luckily for me, by the grace of God, I pulled myself out of it, and I faced everything head on, and I got through what I put myself through. And he obviously didn't get there, and he didn't reach out, and I don't know what happened in his head. I don't know what decisions or things that happened that got him to that point. One thing I do know, though, is if he would have talked to me about it, I would have stayed in that office for hours upon hours, and I would have discussed anything he wanted to talk about with no judgment.
Right.
Because it's, I don't even know where to go with it, but I do know after that, I kind of, not through obligation, but almost kind of through me being so close to it, I knew that I had to help everybody else out and, talk about it and be open about it. And it took a while, but he's still on our crew, man. Like, he's still there. Everybody knows about him. We discuss mental health quite a bit at my company, and so much so that when we do onboarding with our carpenters and laborers, a big part of that onboarding day is going over mental health, and we talk about this individual, and we tell that story because it's raw and it's real, and it needs to be talked about.
It does. There's power in pain.
Yeah.
And I hope he found the peace that he was looking for at the end of the day.
I do too.
I'm really sorry that you guys went through that and you experienced that. That is tough.
It was tough.
I have a bunch of veteran friends. I'm a Marine Corps veteran myself, and suicide thing that they say it's 22 a day, but the real numbers are like 44 or something a day. So there's times, like, I think back to, I was a lot in a different space. I was more callous, my mind was. But there's times where you get a phone call after being out for like a year, you hear about a guy and you'd be like, oh, he's gone now. Oh, this guy's gone now. It was like, man, like out of nowhere too, right? And like, I didn't have anybody that I directly mentored, at least not that I can recall, do that. But I've seen the impact of it and the burden that it leaves behind on people. And that's why I want to stress to the audience, like, reach out. If you need help, say something, just talk. Like, people are here for you. They care. But what I want to touch on in briefly is, like, so how, as a leader, right, like, moving forward a little bit, as a leader, like, how do you pull a team back up? Like, how do you pull your boots on after that? Like, because you took the accountability, obviously, and the ownership. I'll help you out here a little bit. Yeah. Because that's what you did. You didn't eat it and let it consume you. Yeah. You dealt with it, right? Yeah. That's super important. But as guys, like, for your advice to guys getting in leadership roles or in stagnant positions, like I said, our people are hurting.
Yeah, they are.
It doesn't mean just mental health wise, but they're just literally hurting right now. how can you make it better? You know, how do you pull together through a hard time?
Yeah. For me, it was, we, like I was saying, we have a really close-knit, operating group in Portland. And when you work with somebody day in and day out and everything, and you learn about that person and their life outside of work, and you know, you develop that friendship, and you may not realize it, but you can recognize the cues, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, how many times you go to work and you're like, man, John's in a bad mood today. He's in a rough mood.
If you ask the guys in this room, they'd probably tell you every other 10 minutes or something.
Yeah,
It just depends what version of me you catch.
But, you know, instead of just being like, oh, he's in a bad mood, let's avoid him or whatever, you just got to talk to him, you know, and you don't have to, like, you know, hunker down and say, how are you doing today? You know, it could be as simple as like, hey, man, what's going on, dude? Like,
Yeah.
I get it. Like, I can tell you're stressed out, and I know you got this going on and everything, but are you good? You know, and mean it. You know, don't just ask it because, you know, I don't know.
Be sincere.
Yeah, be sincere with it, and you know, a lot of the times, a lot of people won't want to talk about whatever they're going through, and that's fine. They don't have to talk about it, but knowing that they can talk about it, and telling somebody like, listen, dude, like, you tell you're in a bad mood. You want to talk about anything, you let me know. I'm here to talk. No judgment.
Yeah.
Just you know, reach out. You know, and it doesn't have to be at work. You can call me after work. You can ask me to go have a beer or something after work, and be like, hey, man, I'm really struggling right now. You want to chat for a minute? Absolutely.
Yeah, and then you also, like, I think it's important to capitalize that not, and I'm sure we know people on the other end of the spectrum, but not all of your leaders are out to get you.
No.
Not all of them will sink you at the first opportunity
Right.
that they have. Actually, sometimes being vulnerable to people, I've found, actually makes people respect you more.
Agreed.
And when you're able to open up with somebody and they see this real element to you, like, they might know you as a hard charger. They might know you have a bit of an attitude some days, or maybe you're young and you still got things. But the amount of grace that is there when you can show your leadership, and this is for especially somebody going through something right now, if you could show your leadership that you have a human element of, like, hey, I'm not saying come and cry or whine about everything. They don't need to know that you're upset that gas went up and stuff like that. But they do care that your dog of 10 years died.
Yeah.
They do care that your kid has to have surgery. They do care that you're barely making it.
Yeah.
There's a human element to all of us.
Yeah.
Like, we all have been there. We all know what it's like to, like, wonder, am I going to make it?
Yeah.
How am I going to pay my mortgage at the first of the month? I haven't worked in 4 days, and you guys are kind of doing this part-time thing for me. How can I? But if you make me aware, that gives me an opportunity. Maybe I, as the superintendent for this company, can't give you work, but maybe I do know a buddy that's doing some deck stuff on the side.
Yeah. Yeah.
That had I known that you could have used $100 on a Saturday, I would have happily given you that resource, right? So there's a little bit of humility that's got to come from this, but when you do that, it also will deepen your ties and your bonds. And you can't look at it like everybody is going to get you.
Yeah.
You got to let go of that. That's a misconception. In real leadership, and guys like you that have come up, especially guys like you that have come up the ladder, that have started as an apprentice, as before an apprentice, doing pre-apprentice stuff, I'm sure, like, to working foreman, to general foreman without his bags, or sometimes wearing his bags when he's, to now not wearing your bags, but holding the laptop, and but still choosing those guys and putting the right people in place to teach and make sure that your team is successful. Like, there is a power in knowing that those people are in that position also because they have the ability to change.
Yeah.
They have the ability to reconcile with you. They've got there because they can overcome. So some of these people, even like them, don't like them, call it whatever you want, give them the opportunity to serve you.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of things I think a lot of people miss in leadership. Give them the opportunity to make right, to do right by you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's big, man. I do.
It is big.
I want to get into, in our last few minutes here, one, thank you so much for sharing that. I know that's a tough conversation to have, but dude, people need to understand that your culture, that's so important. That's one thing we keep coming back to, is creating a culture. But two, like that, I think it's really important for people to understand that your leadership cares, they are available, and then that you can get through it.
Yeah.
You can.
You can.
But you can't swallow it.
You can't swallow it. You got to face stuff head on, man. You can't sit there and drown yourself in your head. You can't. You gotta as hard as it is to ask for help, after you do it, it feels a whole lot better.
It sure does.
It really does. And you realize, like, man, that wasn't even that hard to do, you know?
And what the craziest thing is sometimes when you ask somebody like about like whatever you're stressed about, sometimes they'll be like, damn, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, they don't even have that answer?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
You don't have, that's the thing too, is you don't have to have all the answers.
No.
You just have to be that shoulder to, that ear for somebody to vent if they need to vent, you know? So you don't have to have all the answers, you know?
Yeah. I mean, and that applies to even on your skill set stuff.
Yeah.
Like a lot of time, like, dude, like I said, rigging stuff. How much shit you think I've seen rigged?
Oh man, gosh.
I can't even tell you. Yeah.
I can't imagine.
But there's still times where somebody will ask me how to rig something. I had to think. It's not an automatic. I don't know.
Yeah.
Let's try this. No, I don't like the way that looks. Okay. What about this? Oh, I'm going to do it this way.
Yep.
Like, oh, okay. That will work. Like,
yeah.
Yes, we might do this all day long. I might watch it all day long. But there's sometimes you just got to freestyle. Like, I may not know.
Yeah.
I just got to then collaboratively, like, let's figure it out. And that's that problem, solution, benefit, right? Like you identify the problem, find the solution, and then the benefit is this. Like, and now your cohesion, right? I'm using big words, folks, weird. But your cohesion now is there because that's a bonding experience that you have now with that individual. And I can tell you, and I'm sure you can because you build cranes and stuff like that, that everybody that you are in contact with is a part of the team in some facet. And if you can build that, where that cohesion, where you're talking and you communicate and that gets good, that the whole day goes faster, your element's more productive. I mean, the phase of the job is and that's where the money is made, right? Like Absolutely. That's also how you can stand out. Yeah. Right? Like that's how you could take that step. But what I want to cover with you our last few minutes, Kyle, and again, thank you so much for your time today, dude.
Glad to be here.
Let's talk about, now you've made the jump. You're in the dark side, right? No, you're in the leadership role where you're impacting lives. That's the way I look at that. You're doing what I want to do. I'm ready to be out of the seat. Full transparency. I don't want to die up there. I'm serious. Yeah, I've only been doing this 10 years, but 10 years is a long time, man.
It is.
I feel like I got more to give, you know, more than just that. And there is a lot more to it than just pulling levers and stuff like that. You know that. There's a lot more to it. But I just feel like there's more. So what I want to talk to you about, and this is for other listeners, we'll say, well, it's for me, but it's not really for me, but for other guys, is now that you're in this role. So what are things that people can do? Like, what are we missing as tradesmen? What's that we can do to make ourselves more marketable? How do we translate that and communicate that we want more?
Yeah. That's a tough question. I think you have to be, at least for me, I had to accept that things are changing, and you kind of have to be more of a gel and be able to kind of adjust and do things differently than you did 10 years ago. Yeah. You know, 10 years is a lot of time in the construction industry, and you know, people have to know that you're willing to shift things up on the fly. You know, you have to be able to, let's take these hard hat helmets, for instance. Nobody wants to wear these damn things. Nobody wants to.
No, I'm not Dave Mira, dude.
You can either just adjust and go with the flow and put the damn helmet on, because it's happening. It's not stopping. Like, they're not, no company's gonna be like, you know what, let's just go back to the old ones. But that's little. But I'm saying you gotta be able to move in uncomfortable directions. Like, it's not always gonna be easy going. You have to be able to be like, man, this one's really gonna be tough, and be able to charge ahead and go through it, and I mean, frankly, make mistakes, but still have confidence, and when you make a mistake, don't just fall down and be like, oh man, what do I do now? No, figure out from that mistake what you can do to learn from it, and how you can take that mistake that you made and try it differently and go a different direction. And then another one is and probably one of the toughest ones to learn is probably time management. When you're running a crew, you get hyper focused on the work, and this is something that I've been trying to teach the foreman under me for a long time now. Is you're the foreman, you're running that crew. You can't be head down building the form or building the wall, whatever you're doing. You have to be head up, and you got to be watching everything around you, and you have to plan ahead, and you have to know 3 steps ahead. It's like a game of chess, and moving crews in the right directions, and when to pull the trigger to tell this crew to go over here, and when to pull a couple guys off a crew and go help out another crew. Managing that time and making those decisions is key, and it takes a long time to get there. But once you start to figure it out, and it really builds your confidence, I guess. I think it's a big deal. Time management is one of the biggest parts of our industry, and being able to be agile in your direction that you're moving.
Yeah, I really like that. All right, moving into the question format of this, and thank you again for that knowledge. That was awesome. I really appreciated the last little bit that we just talked about how when you're ready to just become more aware of those 2 items in particular, right? Yeah. The time management, and the other thing that you said was key, and being able to perform the work and being ready, like just showing that you're ready through your performance. But let's give our audience some gold, Kyle, because you did it. You made it. You're in that leadership role, and this is the most valuable content I think that we could give these guys is from somebody. Like, the biggest thing that we got to be able to do as tradesmen to accept feedback.
Yeah.
Honest to God. Failure is a feedback.
Yeah.
Okay. Criticism can also be a feedback system. So to me, what I want to ask you is, this is from somebody that's made it. Now, I understand that you could answer this as a knuckle dragger. I get that. We've been there. But I want your opinion. This is for the guys that are trying to make the jump, that are jumping, that are stepping into leadership, right? Yeah. So I want a unique perspective from supervision.
Okay. Yeah.
Right? These are things that can make guys more dynamic. So, first and foremost, because this is the show, Blue Collar Barbarians podcast. What is a blue collar barbarian to you?
Just nose to the grindstone, man. Somebody who's hungry for work and hungry for that next step. The guy that always is willing to do anything he is asked and be able to do it without complaint, and just know that it's part of the process.
Right.
And somebody who also somebody who can adjust on the fly and be able to really put their head down and put in the work, and then be able to go home at the end of the day and turn that off and be the whether it's a family man or what, outside of work, and be able to rinse, wash, and repeat and do the same thing the next day. I mean, we do hard work day in and day out, and we don't get recognized a lot, which is fine.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily need that recognition, but somebody who just keeps charging forward when the going gets tough, man. That's blue collar barbarian to me.
That is, and I think being able to separate church and state is absolutely that is absolutely what you said there is fantastic. What can carpenters do specifically for the carpenters out there? What can they do to get a leadership opportunity?
You have to be open to change. Like, yeah, I think I've said that a couple of times in different words, but you have to be open to change, and you have to be willing to do stuff you don't want to do. You can't just, I mean, we got guys out there who only want to do concrete, and that's great, or who only want to frame walls or hang drywall or whatever it is. If you want to take the step into leadership, you at least have to have the ability to do things you don't want to do.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you could take sweeping a floor, for instance. You know, if when the work's over and you're cleaning up or whatever, you and I both know there's guys on the job site that don't want any part of that. They don't want to clean up. They feel like they're above that. And in my opinion, I'm not above anything.
No.
Like, I'll grab a broom. I still grab a broom. Like, you have to be willing to do anything if you're hungry to lead, and also a part of being a leader is showing that you're willing to do you're willing to do that grunt work, and you have to be willing to do anything. That's kind of what I feel. If you want to go into leadership, you have to make it known that you're willing to switch things up.
So don't walk by trash.
Don't walk by trash.
Personal hygiene. Yeah. Show up ready to work.
Yeah.
Attitude.
Yeah.
Those little things.
Yeah.
Here's one for you. So for you, when you're evaluating your guys, what stands out to you the most? Like when you're evaluating?
Being on time.
Oh,
that's a big one. That's one of the things that grinds my gears and kind of rubs my crews the wrong way sometimes. Everybody's late every once in a while. Like, hey, I screwed up. I overslept. The honesty thing's key too. I don't want to hear some lame ass story about how you got a flat tire for the 8th time this year. Like, it's just, that doesn't happen, you know.
Yeah.
But everybody does have those times where they're late. But
oh, dude, I slept through my alarm.
But if you once, cool, I get it. It happens every once in a while. But if it happens once or twice a week or something, when they text me in the morning and say, hey, I'm running a little late, I'll text them back, be like, this is the 2nd time this week for the same reason. Go ahead and stay home.
Yeah.
You know, they may not like it, but if their time, when somebody's late, it's like saying my time's more important than everybody else's time, which when you're working with a crew who needs you there and you're not showing up on time, it just kind of shows like they don't really care a whole lot. They're just coming when they come and go as they please type of deal. So being on time is big. Also, honesty's big. Communication's big. Willingness to learn. Being hungry. Asking a lot of questions. I love getting asked questions.
Yeah.
About the work. Like when you can see somebody asking the question of why are we doing this? Like, I love explaining it. Like, oh, we're doing this. You know, we're pouring this footing right here so we can put temporary shoring on it so we can do the structural demo and then we can pour the new concrete into it and then make it a new part of the building. Like, explain what you're doing. So those questions I love getting asked. So being on time, honesty, communication, and asking a lot of questions. Those are all big in my evaluations.
Hey, dude, those are gold.
Yeah.
Those are gold. Then the last thing I got for you is, what would you do differently, if anything?
Like a different trade?
No.
Different leadership?
Coming up, yeah. Just from coming up, if there's one thing that you learned to getting where you're at now,
mm-hmm.
what would you do different to have set yourself up? Would you maybe have taken the jump earlier?
No, I don't think so. I think I made the jump when I was ready. I wouldn't change that. I think I'd gain a little bit of humility earlier on.
Okay. Oh, that's big, dude.
Yeah. You know, because I knew I was getting work done. I knew I could do some stuff and hang in there with the big leagues and everything. But I probably was a little cocky in the beginning. I wish I would have humbled up a little bit in the beginning. I mean, this is early on.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I'd probably gain a little humility a little earlier, and I think I probably would have made it farther a little sooner.
Right.
Yeah.
The lessons learned, though. That's what the point is here with this
Mm-hmm.
one. Man, that's a great one. Humility, I think, like, I hadn't even thought about that.
Mm-hmm.
But that is one thing that, like, me too.
Yeah.
Like, I wish, because, like, when you know you got it sometimes in this, especially in a competitive environment, you know.
Yeah.
But sometimes your ego gets away from you.
Yeah. There's a fine line between humility and confidence.
Yes.
You know, and being able to walk that line is tough to do, but it's definitely doable. So yeah, fine line between humility and confidence for sure.
Absolutely. Well, Kyle, man, thank you so much. One, for sharing that hard story.
Yeah.
I know how tough that was. Really appreciate it. That's going to bring a lot of value to change. I hope it changes a lot of people's lives. Two, thank you so much for your time today to come down here. You're a busy man, just like I am. But
yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah,
appreciate this.
It's been really cool. But dude, this episode was chock full of just pure gold and grit, and your information was like, there was things that you were saying that I'm taking notes in my head the entire time, right? Like, just I'm actually currently trying to make the jump right now.
Yeah.
So as a crane operator, which
Yeah.
is unheard of.
No, it's doable though, man.
Yeah,
it's
I
definitely
believe it.
doable.
So thank you so much again for coming on the show today. Thank you for sharing your knowledge with these guys. And I just want to congratulate you again on your recent promotion. And I know you're going to crush it. You do. You always have since I've known you.
Yeah.
And thank you for, more importantly, man, thank you for being a leader that's about it.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
The things that you shared in your approach, like in caring about your guys from a hand, that means a lot. And I hope that people listening to this take this, if they take anything away, it's that they know that there's guys like us that are up there, maybe a little bit higher up the ladder than them, that we care.
Yeah, definitely, man.
That we care about you guys. So thank you again, Kyle. And this has been fun. And we'll see you guys all on the next show.
Appreciate it. Thanks, man.
Yeah.